video, we left off with you and your dog conducting field searches. I'm sure you're wondering, what's next? In this video, we will start transitioning the dog to searching a specific area, which eventually will lead to building searches, car searches, and much more. In addition, if your dog is food motivated, but doesn't care for toys, I will show you how to start your detection training. To begin with, we need to go over the equipment you will be using during these stages. To start, you need 5 to 6 containers that the dog can put his nose into while searching. My favorite thing to use for this is square cinder blocks because they're heavy and not easily moved by the dog. Other things you can use, though you will need to find a way to lay them down, are beach buckets, Rubbermaid tubs with a hole cut in the lid, or cardboard boxes. It's important that they all look as similar as possible. For this video, I will be using beach buckets because my cinder blocks are stored outside and it's too cold to film out there.
The beach buckets are all the same size and shape with the same handle. The only difference in them is their color, which is not too important here. I have them weighed down with aquarium gravel that is packaged in a plastic bag to prevent spillage. Next, you need your scent tins. You want tins that all look exactly the same. I bought mine in the wedding section of the craft store, 30 tins for around $20. They have a thin plastic window in the lid which is easy to cut through. Most of your tins will be what are called blanks. They are not scented. On one of them, cut a few holes or slits in the lid so the scent can escape. Next, place a cotton ball in every single one. We want them to appear as uniform as possible so that the dog cannot tell the difference between the scented tin and the blanks. Place a few drops of the scent you are working with on the cotton ball in the tin with the holes cut in the lid. When storing the tins, it is important to not store the scented tins with the non-scented tins. This could easily confuse the dog if the scent bleeds through to the blanks. Now it is time to set up your search area. Start with only 3 of your buckets, or whatever you're using, and line them up along the wall, spaced as evenly as possible. As your dog progresses, you can add more buckets. Place 1 tin in each bucket. This way, the dog learns to search with his nose and not with his eyes, because if you only put the scented tin into the bucket and didn't have non-scented tins in the other buckets, he would learn to just look for the tin. In the last video, we learned about primary rewards. Now it's time for a little bit more vocabulary. In this video, we will start switching from primary rewards to what are called secondary rewards. A secondary reward is a toy that is not scented and is given to the dog after he finds the scent. If you are one of the people who is using toys to train this, you will need a pouch in which to put the toy attached to your hip, as seen here. We are going to be performing a little magic trick for the dog. To do this, put your dog in a downstay. Show the dog that you have a wonderful toy and go along the row of buckets pretending to hide it. When you get to the bucket that has the scented tin in it, quietly drop the toy in there and then return along the row, still pretending to hide it. And show him that the toy has suddenly vanished. It is important to use the same motion for every bucket so the dog does not figure out which bucket the toy is in. The reason I use the motion demonstrated here, moving my hands between the bucket and my hip, will be explained later. Release your dog from its downstay and begin using your cue to search, while showing the dog the buckets. The goal at this point is to get your dog to put his nose into the bucket. Usually the first 2 or 3 times, I put the scented tin and the toy in the first bucket to show the dog that it's okay to put his nose in there. Once he finds the toy, play with him for a little while, then repeat the magic trick. It's a good idea to move the scented tin around to different buckets once the dog knows to stick his nose in there. Keep him guessing which one it'll be in. It's this step that you are going to start at if you are training odor detection using food. Instead of performing the magic trick using the toy, use your treat. Just as with the primary rewards in the first video, you want to switch up the food you are using, for the same reason. If you only use one type of food, chances are the dog will learn to detect the scent of the food, not the scent you want him to. You want the dog to understand that the only scent in common among these rewards is the scent you are training him to find. Switch it up between different types of meat, cheese, store-bought treats, whatever treats are highly rewarding to the dog. Once your dog has done these searches for about a week, you can move on to the next step. Start your magic trick as before, but instead of placing the toy in the bucket, put it in your toy pouch. I like to keep my pouch toward the back side of my hip. This is why I touch my hip, even in the beginning stages, so that putting the toy in the pouch is not obvious to the dogs. Before releasing your dog for the search, take the toy out of the pouch from behind your back, being sure to keep it hidden from sight the whole time. Start the search. The instant your dog puts his nose inside the bucket with the scent, throw the toy at the bucket. The trick here is to make sure that the dog never catches you throwing the toy. Throw from behind him. He has to think that the toy is coming from the scent, not from you. This creates a dog who will focus his attention on where the scent is coming from, rather than looking away from the scent because he knows you're going to throw a toy for him. It can be a bit tricky at first to get the timing and placement right. If, like me, you generally have terrible aim, you can practice throwing the toy at the buckets without your dog present. When using food, at this stage, drop the food in from above. This is another reason I prefer cinder blocks, because there's no chance that throwing the toy in will tip it over. Then, like with field searches, gradually increase the time your dog has to wait for the toy. You will know that your dog is ready to move on when he starts freezing up for a second. You should watch your dog closely for any change in behavior when he reaches the scent. It could be as subtle as ears perking up, or as dramatic as Pixie demonstrates here. Let's play her reaction again in slow motion. This is called an indication. You can even, if you think your dog is ready for it, proof your dog by continuing to move on to the next block and giving your cue. A few things could happen here. If your dog moves on with you, finish the line of buckets and take him back to the beginning, and then search them again. If he starts to move on but goes back to the bucket with the scent in it on his own, reward him immediately. He figured out that you were trying to fool him and went back to where he knows the toy will come from. If he stays at the bucket and ignores you, then well done! The idea here is that the dog thinks you have no idea where the scent is, and it's his job to show it to you. He's probably thinking, it's right here, stupid human, and there's a toy that's about to pop out, so I'm not moving.
In the next video, we will move on to teaching your dog to search both high and low places, which will then translate into your dog's ability to search a room or building for the scent. We will also discuss adding in additional scents,